Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin from Florals.com and welcome back to the 2020 Creative Reset series. Today we're continuing on with our conversations about setting ourselves up for success and making a plan for our crafty goals in 2020. Because oftentimes we make these goals, they sound great, and we forget about them throughout the year. So today we're actually talking about those goals that are quantity-based. We've talked about project-based goals and time-based goals already, but today we're talking about quantity-based. So sometimes we just want to get a lot done. We're not sure what projects we want to work on. We're not sure, what cards we might want to send, but we know we have a quantity in mind that we'd like to get done, whether that's X amount per day, X amount per crop, X amount per week or month or year or per quarter, whatever it is. Those quantity-based goals are usually associated with a time, so this is where it gets a little bit confusing with a time-based and a quantity-based. But if you do a longer span of a time-based goal, generally it's a quantity-based goal. So my quantity-based goal, which I've shown you guys this before, but in my Crafty sort of goals booklet, they're actually not in here because I'm keeping track of them a different way, but my major quantity goal is actually to create 200 layouts. Now last year I wanted to create 150, which I did, but this year I want to create 200. So when you have your crafty goals in place, you can analyze them, which we've done in the previous episodes of 2020 Creative Reset. If you have not watched the rest of 2020 Creative Reset, I highly recommend it. I think we've been building on a lot of things, so it helps if you have those reference points that we've talked about in previous episodes, so that you can dive into these full force, with everything, all the knowledge and all the tools what we've already discussed. So if you have a quantity-based goal, there's a couple ways to go about breaking it down. Depending on how you set yours up, it could be a weekly goal, it could be a monthly goal, whatever time frames within that, you might want to set up different milestones within that. So mine's within a year. So I actually track mine based on a monthly basis. So that's how I break mine down, mainly because I personally work with monthly kits. A lot of the collabs I do are monthly kits. Some of the guest design work I'm doing is monthly kit based. So knowing that I work on a monthly basis is easier for me to track them on a month schedule rather than a week schedule, because I'm not really changing what I'm working on every week. I don't go to crops, so I don't have that kind of influx of layouts that I need to keep track of. Monthly works best for me, and this goes with cards and layouts. I keep track of them all in one place. And there are so many different ways you can keep track of how much you create, when you created. I used to date mine about when I created them, but then I realized that that didn't really matter to me. It was just a matter of what month they were created in, which months are more successful, etc. So this is how I tracked them last year as well. So if we go back to December, I have a list, all of my creations in December, cards, layouts, what type they were. Here we have, I think this is July. Yes, this is July. Again, I used to keep track of dates, but I realized that didn't really matter to me. So I do not keep track of dates any longer, mainly just the layout. Here I didn't even keep track of what type they were, if they were 12 by 12 or if they were 8.5 by 11 or pocket page, which now that I'm looking at all of these were 12 by 12, so maybe I just decided not to. But keeping track of their titles, I think that's kind of a fun way to do it, only because that's the only way I can keep track. If I double count something, I won't realize it unless I have an identifier for that particular project. So when you're creating your list to track, it could be a physical list, it could be a checkmark list, it could be a whiteboard, it could be a digital list, it could be a notebook that you just keep a tally mark in every time you create a page. Whatever you're doing and whatever you consider a creation or whatever you're counting, it could be layouts, it could be cards, it could be put away layouts. Maybe you're not considering a layout done until it is filed and put away, because you know that that's really the number you're looking for, not necessarily getting the stories on paper, but the stories in albums might be the most important step to you. So really looking at these things, and like I've mentioned in previous episodes, you can really change up your goals to any different style type of goal. So if you don't think a quantity-based goal is for you, or you've tried quantity-based goals in the past and they don't work for you, either because your schedule is just crazy, it doesn't make sense to make a monthly goal, or if you do a yearly goal but you realize December is the busiest month of the year, so you don't have the time to do anything in December, so you're not going to actually reach your goal because the last month of the year is out of the question. Really take into account those types of things. So if you made a yearly goal, but you know that you're not actually going to scrapbook for a whole year because December is pretty much out of the question, or a different month's out of the question because of work or because of children or because of family, for whatever reason, make sure you have note of that. Make sure that you're including that in your total, because when you build your goals, they could, quantity-based goals at least, you can build them off of an average, a yearly average. So last year, 2019, I created over 150 layouts. So I think 200 is doable because I'm going to dedicate more time to my craft room. But you don't always have to increase your goals. Your goals could be the same every single year, because that means you're consistent. That means you're still spending time in your room. But if you want to spend more time in your room, increasing that goal might encourage you. Decreasing that goal is also a great idea if you find that you're just frustrating yourself with your goals. If you're a person who gets really overwhelmed by goals, I don't think a quantity goal is necessarily the best option. I think a smaller term goal would be better. Quantity-based goals can be very, very overwhelming, mainly because it is racing against the clock, essentially. So right now you have a full year ahead of you. You would love, love, love to spend an entire year in your craft room every single day crafting away. And say that equates to 365 layouts in the perfect world, right? You get 365 layouts, one layout a day, nothing more, nothing less. But that's not reality for a lot of us. That's not possible for a lot of us. A lot of us don't want to spend crafty. Things come up. We can't spend every day in our craft room. We work, we have kids, we have things that come out because life throws curveballs. So in keeping that in mind, your goal is not necessarily an end game, it's just an encouragement point. So really trying to get yourself in your craft room and use more. That's personally one of my goals, is to use more, specifically use more than I buy. So I can bring new stuff into my stash, but I have to also be taking stuff out of my stash, so using it up. And you guys know that I actually report on the empties that I have every single month during my favorites videos. So that's something that keeps me accountable. If I don't have an empty, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think showing off those empties has encouraged me to, reach for the things that only have a couple things left and be dedicated to myself to use them. So that's more of a project or a, item-based goal. So it could be also quantity-based goal in that way. Say you want to, create layouts, but the number of layouts doesn't matter to you. It's more so using product that you've been neglecting. Make a basket full of 20 items, for example, 20 different sticker sheets, 20 different whatevers, and start counting how many of those you use. Our quantity-based goals don't have to be specifically for the end product. Maybe it's, just eliminating things from your stash. Maybe your goal is to purge X amount of items per year. That's a great quantity goal, or X amount of items per month. Or you could even do a quantity-based goal that's bring one in, take two out. I've heard people do that for other types of organization in their household, whether it be clothes. If you bring a new one in, you have to take two out. It's a great method to keep a control on your stash, but I also know that we value things a little bit differently in the scrapbooking industry than other sectors of our life, like clothes, for example. But just keep these things in mind when you're creating your goals, or if you have your goals, when you're setting them and when you're trying to map them out. Now, my quantity-based goal is a number. It's 200 layouts and 100 cards. So if you were to divide that by 12, you could get a monthly goal. But as we've already discussed, some months simply aren't the same quantity as other months. So if we did 200 divided by 12, I just don't want to be wrong on the math here, that's about 17 layouts a month. That's honestly a lot for me even. My big bursts of creativity don't come on a monthly basis. I can make 25 layouts one month and then 5 the next. I think that this is an audacious goal. It's a big goal. And I think that I might not achieve it, and that's okay. I mean, so far I've only created, 6 layouts, but that was all in one day. One evening I just filmed 6 videos because I have to get ahead and all this other stuff. But knowing that I'm going to be gone for work, for vacation, for etc. things, I'm not going to be able to be in my craft room every day. So keeping that kind of stuff in mind, you know that your goal might have to change. So when you're mapping it out, and you're trying to map it out maybe on a monthly basis, 17 layouts would be approximately the right number, because 17 times 12 is 204. Going over is always a great idea. So when you're writing down your calendars, for example, here I'll bring in my planner so you guys can see. When you're writing down your calendars, perhaps you want to start with the month. So when you're mapping out your month, and you have 17 layouts to do, you need to make sure you're scheduling that time. And maybe yours is just a monthly goal. So say you don't have a yearly goal like I do. Say you have a monthly goal of 5 layouts. mapping out that time. Maybe on Sundays you take some time to reflect on what you've created the previous week and marking that down in your notes section or in your bullet journal or somewhere, or you look on your digital calendar and you have a reminder in there. To scrapbook every Friday night, because that tends to be your free night. You could also do things like setting reminders for specific Facebook groups that list challenges. That way you have something to look forward to doing because it's pushing you to do it by X amount of date. So looking for those pre-made deadlines in your life will be really, really helpful for you, especially if there's an incentive like some of the Facebook groups and some of the blogs do for their challenges. I know a lot of different companies do challenges for when you use their product. So if you have a lot of simple stories and they do different challenges, head over there, check that out. If you love scrapbook.com and they do challenges, a cherry on top and they do challenges, check those out to really motivate you for these quantity-based goals, because therefore there would be a different deadline, something that's not imposed by you, but something imposed by a third party that would make you create something for that specific challenge or, whatever opportunity it might be. You can also impose self deadlines, especially for me, for YouTube. I upload on specific days, so I have those deadlines to create by X amount of date. Now, luckily, I do upload videos that are not necessarily process videos, so I also get to do videos like this one where it's more so thought rather than a lot of sit down and create, so I don't necessarily have to be creative all the time with YouTube anymore. Like I used to just do process videos, so it was create all the time. But now that I've developed this other series and these other things, I've kind of alleviated the creative pressure off myself to be able to do things off camera as well. So keep that in mind. If you're creating a quantity-based goal, there's other elements that go along with it. There's dedicated time. There's dedicated motivation. There's dedicated craftiness. There's a lot of other elements you need to remember that go along with it, because everything we do takes time. And obviously time-based goals are really just hitting a time mark versus a quantity mark. So we're all doing the same thing. We're all creating for different reasons, different ways, different reasons and different stories. But it all comes down to the same thing. We're spending time to be creative for ourselves, for our family, for creativity in general. We just love to create. But just keep that in mind, that there's going to have to be a trade-off of some sort in terms of either motivation for other tasks, energy for other tasks. So if you want to create X amount of layouts, how much do you have to switch off of chores to do for, scrapbooking? Because creating takes time, it takes energy. A lot of things in our lives take energy. So is it waking up an extra hour every day, or every Sunday maybe when the house is quiet, or every Saturday, every Friday night you stay up late once everyone's gone to bed, to dedicate time to yourself? Because there aren't enough hours in the day to do everything we want, but we can make more hours by sacrificing sleep, sacrificing other hobbies, or housework can pretty much sacrifice as far as I'm concerned. We don't need it. And just kind of getting little bits here and there may not seem like a lot, but once you start tallying up your quantities, how many cards you made, how many layouts you made, or how many things you finished, or how many photos you scrapped, that's a great thing to count as well. Perhaps then you'll start seeing a change. You'll see a shift in your ability to swap out these things. But it really comes over time. You have to practice it. You have to make time for it, which really comes along with any goal. You can't just work on something and not make time for it. It's generally you're sacrificing something else's time. Maybe you scrapbook while you do something else. So there's not a lot of things you can do, but maybe family time is also scrapbooking time. So you take a couch kit to the couch while you and your family are watching a movie. Something like that could work. Or if there's a party and you're hosting it and it's at your house, but you need some time away, go down to your craft room for a few minutes. No one's going to miss you for a few minutes. And then you'll have a little bit of relief and tension from the party. And, there's all sorts of different situations, and everyone's lives are different. And everyone's prioritization of scrapbooking is different, because we are all different. And it means different things to different people, which I completely understand. And I know that quantity-based goals aren't usually the most prolific or profound. It's more so get it done, sort of like a catch-up series or a catch-up on Project Life or your child's baby album. This is a way to kind of force yourself to do that without being project-based. And as you guys know, I scrapbook all sorts of things, and I don't like to be held accountable to one project. Like, I don't like to be attached to one project for the year or multiple projects throughout the year, because my interests change so much in what I want to create and what I want to do. And if you're like that, I prefer quantity, based, but I do have a project based, which motivates me a lot more than a quantity based does, because this doesn't look like much, but if you saw 200 layouts stacked up, or 100 or 10 or 15 every month, that's success. Anything you do is a success, because if you got anything on paper, if you got any thoughts down, if you organized anything, that's a success, guys. Don't let your ideas of a goal turn you away from the things that you're actually doing successfully. But those are just my thoughts. But I really love quantity-based goals. I like just tracking things in general, which is why I have a bullet journal and why I've been doing this for over a year now. I started this in January last year, so I've been bullet journaling for a year. As you guys can tell, January was a great year last year, or a great month last year. This is when I really focused in on my Vermont album. These are all 6x8 pages, a lot of them doubles. I didn't even count them twice, but this is a great way to really see your stats on paper. Can help motivate you for the next month. So maybe your quantity goal isn't exactly a number, it's just do more than last month. So if you have a January that looks like this, next month you can make 7, next month you can make 8, next month you can make 9. There's all sorts of ways to make goals, and I hope you guys are road mapping them out. If you have a yearly number, 150, 250, 7, 0, whatever your number is for whatever. It doesn't have to be layouts. It could be 100 stickers used. It could be 2 washi tapes empty. It could be anything. I like to go big or go home, so I'm going 200 layouts. Just make sure that you're mapping it out, because if you're not hitting the halfway point within your time frame, so say you're only doing January to November, because December is just not going to happen. If you're not hitting the numbers that you want by May, that's a time to reevaluate. If you're not hitting your numbers by maybe the quarterly, so January, February, March, if you're not seeing the results you want, that might not be the right goal for you, and you should reevaluate. Now, this series does end before the quarterly, the quarterly look back would be at the end of March, but that doesn't mean you can't do it, and I would highly recommend scheduling that into your schedule as well. Maybe just making a note on a whiteboard or a post-it in your craft room to just come back at March, reevaluate your goals, track your success so far, so to count up your quantity based, look at your finished layout stack, look at your finished cards, how many cards have you sent out, whatever you're counting, and just reevaluate. Changing the number is absolutely fine. No one says you can't do that, and maybe you just did quarterly goals anyway to begin with. That's great. Build on those and reestablish new goals for the second quarter, because second quarter tends to be a great time to catch up on scrappy things depending on your schedule. I know a lot of people, have summertime vacations and all that kind of stuff, but that is pretty much it I wanted to say about quantity-based goals. Again, I love quantity-based goals only because I love numbers and counting, but I'm counting mine monthly as I did before because I found that worked out the best for me personally. But just work on something that works for you. I'm sharing these tips just for inspiration. You guys don't have to do anything that I say. I'm sure there's a lot of other goal setting videos out there that'll be helpful, but not too many about crafting goals. So I just really wanted to sit down and go through that with you guys. And we're going to start going into more tips on how to prep your craft room and your mindset for success for your types of goals. So be ready for that in the next coming episodes, because we're talking organization, we're talking about inventory, we're talking about all sorts of fun stuff. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to check out the rest of the 2020 Creative Reset playlist, linked down below, and check out Patreon if you're interested in getting more content from me that's more in depth and, just more of it from me. So you guys can check that out, linked down below as well. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.